Hey, God dang. Kevin. Hey, Family Matters. We do this every Thursday-ish. So within 24 hours is what we're allowed to. So we're within our 24-hour window. We do this every week to the best of our ability. Kevin Petersen, how are you?
I'm good. I'm fresh back from world headquarters of Jaywalker Lodge in Carbondale, Colorado, out here at Jaywalker East in Jacksonville Beach, Florida, and it is the weekend of the players, the PGA players. So it's a little crowded out here, a little crazy.
You can't say Jaywalker East because then people are just going to assume Jaywalker's expanding. So.
Oh yeah, no. Okay, you're right. No, the administrative offices.
I learned that the hard way. I made a joke about place, and then lo and behold, they started getting calls. We didn't know you were expanding, and I was like, oh my god, jeez. So anyway, we answer questions. We call them fears.
Yep.
You keep the answers. You keep the questions coming, and one of these days we will stump Kevin.
Yeah.
But yeah, so things going well for you, Kevin. Family program went off without a hitch at Jaywalker.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. We had everything went really well. I brought in some extra security for Bert to make sure he didn't make a run for it like last time, and brought in our CFO's daughter. Kylie is his sober companion, paid her, and she made sure he didn't make an AMA. So it worked out really well.
Jesus.
Yeah.
All righty, Kevin. Once again, they send the message to me, but then say, "Hey, Kevin." So you know what? Whatever. That's fine. I'm not.
I know that hurts you.
No, not at all. I have supposed tools to handle this, but so in particular, dealing with family programs and family involvement, how we have our son who is she put successful in quotations. So I don't know, but is paying for his own treatment. This is his fourth time in treatment, and every time. We are unable to get any kind of updates or anything because from what we're told, we are not able to. He hasn't signed something to, let's call it an ROI, return of information. Or what is that? It's not return of information.
Release.
Yeah.
Sure.
It started with an R. At least I got that right. Release of information. We call it ROI in the biz. But how do you handle a family if you have the client that's paying for treatment and is not signing any ROIs for families?
That's a great question because we get that all the time, and our place ain't cheap. So what I get is the dad or whoever's footing the bill saying, well, it doesn't matter, I'm paying, therefore I'm like, unfortunately, not according to federal law. And so I hate to tell you that doesn't, that allows you access to his financial information, but it does not allow you access to his clinical information. So what I generally say in those situations is, make it clear to him that, if he's not going to engage you or talk to you or let you know what's going on, then, you're just going to pay for treatment and that's it, and when he calls and says, hey, would you send me some new shoes or some this or some that? Oh, I'll tell you what, why don't you sign the releases so we can talk and see what's going on? And we'd be happy to do that. But until then, if you're going to do that, then our response is going to be, oh, we're going to respect your wishes. But those wishes come with, if you don't want us involved, then we're not involved. And that means you don't get to call us for money, clothing, whatever. That's not how this works. If we want to do it together as a team, great. We're happy to work together as a team. And let's be clear, I would never divulge individual therapy information to a family member, ever, period. It's just completely inappropriate. So our stance, our stance at Jaywalker is, sure, we'll give you a weekly update. Like the weekly calls that we do with the families as the family team, about 5 or 10 minutes are like, well, yeah, we have like what we call a report card. He's going to treatment, he's going to therapy, he's going to group therapy, he's participating, he's got a sponsor, he's going to meetings, he's working the steps, he's doing his activities, and he is engaged, and his peers are, this is where we're at. And that's it. We're not gonna manage him through a third party. Now let's talk about your homework and how's it going and what's going on. And the families adapt to it. They get it once they understand that he's there. If they're not doing well, we tell them. We're like, hey, he's really struggling. He's having a hard, and it's never news to them. It's never like, oh my God, you're kidding. I can't believe it. So that's kind of how we handle it. But if they're going to play that game, then you don't have to play a game with them. You can say, oh, okay, that's cool. But if that's what you want, then that means no benefits either. Yeah.
I mean, what brings to mind is what people brought up to me numerous times is how has that worked up into this point? It sounds like it's a normal thing. This is his 4th or 5th treatment or something. Doesn't sound like he's ever kind of, gave information. I know there's a wife involved too, and literally no information released. And so what I think of is it hasn't worked to this point. Is he just going through the motions, and is he really truly serious about changing? And I think it's a huge problem, and I don't necessarily know what the answer is, especially if he's not needing any financial help or anything like that. I think if there is a wife and maybe even some kids involved, like I think the wife may hold a few cards. Mm-hmm. But to me, that just shows lack of willingness. So
absolutely. It's complete. It's a game. It's a power and control game, and you want to disengage from the game. Oh, okay, cool. You don't want to share with us and let us know what's going on? Then cool. Then you know what? We won't be involved, And by the way, again, at Jaywalker, we'll still meet with the family and have them go over their homework. We just can't talk about the guy, Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just the rules. So, yeah, cool. We get that all the time. We get it. We always have one or two guys that thinks it's always the guys that are treatment savvy that think, they're gonna pull a fast one and bully the family. And so, yeah. All right. What else you got, Jay? What else you got up your sleeve?
I have not, I thought I had everything ready, but, so we have another case. We have a case of relapse. Said they had gone to treatment within the last year, so not necessarily knowing how long. But she wants to know here, as a mom, as a family member, did we miss some signs? I mean, is there anything in particular that we missed? I mean, is there something families can kind of monitor when it comes to a loved one relapsing and preventing it? I think she's taking the control of, like, I could have prevented this relapse, which we know we can't do, but are there any signs?
Sure. And I mean, I would definitely say the traditional signs are all of a sudden they're too busy to go to meetings. They're too busy to meet with their sponsor. They're too busy for therapy. You're going to start hearing a lot of negative talk about therapy, sponsor, and meetings. And, and then the next thing I would say is you're going to start hearing a justification. Well, it's just one beer. I never had a problem with that, And when you start hearing those things, you need to understand if they're going to make that statement, they've already started.
Yeah.
Okay? And so, that's where they're headed. But I would say the initial things to watch out for are, getting off their schedule. I mean, if the schedule is you're going to IOP, you're going to meetings, you have a sponsor, and, and all those things, and all of a sudden that stuff starts changing, then all of a sudden we got a problem, and we have to start saying, hey, whoa. This is about consistency. We're about doing things on a consistent level, over and over and over. And, I mean, you and I know we've been sober a long time. It's not exciting. It's not like the old lifestyle where it's woohoo, this is great. It's I wake up, I go to the gym, I go to work, I eat dinner, I watch TV, I go to bed. And you know what? Nobody's coming after me. Nobody's mad at me. Nobody's trying to kill me. Nobody's trying to steal shit from me. Nobody's trying to get something out of me. It's like, yeah, I don't have that problem anymore. I have a really nice life. But you build it with that foundation of just being super consistent, accountable, and transparent. So
it's old behaviors. It's old behaviors. I mean, yeah, like families, they've probably seen them in addiction more than they kind of seen them kind of sober. And if they start recognizing old, Jay used to do this while, Jay was always, there's a good sign that either I have relapsed or I'm on the verge of relapsing. Now, you can't prevent the relapse. You can certainly step in to the best of your abilities and say, hey, what's wrong? What's really going on? I'm not going to take fine as an answer, but and maybe just maybe you shake them enough that you can get them to a meeting or whatever, so the relapse doesn't have to happen. But if they're going back to the old way of that they were, that's a sign. That's a big red flag.
Yeah. And what are the breadcrumbs on the way to that? It's all of a sudden you'll start to know, and this is what I tell people when I work with them and they're teenagers, because teenagers tend to have a very consistent world. And then all of a sudden, oh, I don't like those friends anymore. They suck. I don't want to play sports anymore. That sucks. I don't want to. I mean, when they start making those changes, it's like, hold on. What's going on? Something's going on. Be aware when all of a sudden the formula that's working, all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't have time for that. It's like, okay, let's sit down and talk about this, because what we're seeing is we've got our son back, and what you're saying is you want to start stepping outside of that, and we're not okay with that. Yeah.
So if you had that, if you just mentioned that conversation, we're recognizing some changes, what is that? Just a simple conversation? Like how you just sit them down and say, hey, we're not taking fine as an answer. What's really going on? Here's what we're noticing. This hasn't been like you for the last month or whatever you've been back since treatment.
Yeah. Well, we're noticing some changes and we just want to talk about it. I mean, it's not, you don't come in with like your guns blazing and criticizing and finger pointing and confronting. It's just like, God, I've noticed that, some things have started to change, and you're not going to meetings, and you haven't talked about your sponsor, and, and I just want to make sure everything's okay. I'm not coming at you from a sense of I'm hovering over you and managing you. I love you, and I want to make sure you're okay. If you come at them like that, they're not going to argue with you. But if you come at them with, so I've been noticing on the schedule, it's like, whoa, stop micromanaging me,
So we got a few. I got a few kind of questions from last week where we touched on manipulation, and one person kind of just messaged me like, are we not supposed to even believe anything that they're saying? I guess what we talked about last week, and I couldn't even be, is, I think we talked about kind of what I think I personalized it and said like, hey, like I knew after a couple of treatment stops, I knew some buzzwords, to get everyone off my back. And when I would call home, I threw in some words I heard in group that the counselor dropped, that I wasn't ready to admit, but then I dropped it to my mom and dad. So I guess where's that line between, let's just say, the process of changing and manipulation? Like, because it happens, and families, I would love to tell that everyone calling home from treatment is being honest and sincere, but more often than not, there's probably the goal of getting out early or trying to get someone to get mom to send them to Malibu, or, send them, just give me some money and the sober living. And, I'm doing great. I know, everything's great. You don't need to waste your money. I use that a lot. So there's manipulation. I don't think in the moment, I didn't see it as manipulating. I probably wanted to get out and get high, but I just wanted to get out.
Right.
So I think we meant it in the moment as an addict, but absolutely.
Yeah. So the big picture question. I mean, I'm going to answer the question, but I'm going to take a step back a little bit. The big picture here is that getting sober is great. 30, 60, 90, 6 months, 9 months, a year is freaking awesome. Congratulations. You're living the life. Let's be totally honest. Your brain has not caught up. If you've done 5, 10, 15, 20 years of damage through drugs and alcohol and traumatic events, just because you're sober 30, 60, 90, 6 months or 9 months or a year does not mean your brain has been sober and is back firing on all pistons, And I mean, it's a testament to the human brain that you can fire on 4 pistons instead of 8 and actually do okay and make it look okay. And so I would actually, my position now is not so much that the guy or the gal is trying to manipulate or lie. I mean, some of them definitely straight up are, but I also think it's their addiction saying, you're fine.
Yes.
You're good. It's all good.
Yes.
You got to get back to life. You got to quit spending mom and dad's money. You got to get back in action, baby. You got to get back to school. You got to get back to get a job and start paying your own way, because that's what they taught me in AA. I got to pay my own way. And it's like, oh yeah, you absolutely do. There's no question about it. But you are not ready to go back to that job. You are not ready to go back into that environment. You need more time developing the day-to-day existence, the day-to-day living skills. So while, sure, they've learned the language, they've learned the treatment lingo and more the therapy lingo, right? And they learned the things to say to make mom and dad happy. They're really not ready yet. And that's okay. It's not their fault. I mean, you're fighting against, so when I got sober when I was 27. So, for the first year or two, man, I was in a blur. I was just like, what? And so to think that I was functionally 27, 28, 29 years old, I wasn't. I was 14, 15, 16 because I was still maturing and waking up and growing up and behaving like an adult, or learning how to behave like an adult. And of course, I would say things that I learned in AA or I learned in therapy, and that would make me look good, but I was not all there. And again, I don't believe that was my fault or anybody else's fault. I don't blame them for thinking that way. They don't get it that their brain has not completely healed from all the abuse they put it through. And so that's why you have to be, as the family, you have to be the one that makes the bigger, the big picture decision. Like, no, we committed to a year, you're doing a year, and get that get well job. And then, you can eventually be the manager of the pizza parlor, and making $25 an hour, $30 an hour. And oh my God, that's big money, and then eventually you can start getting yourself back into the space where you're ready for the big picture. So anyway, that's kind of my thought process. I don't think yes, there's a certain amount of hustle going on, I would say. But that's because you're not talking to your son, you're talking to the addiction. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was told pretty much for the first year at least of recovery, like, what, I'll see you at the meeting on Tuesday night, or, it also helped I didn't have a driver's license. So my sponsor and some other people from the group would come pick me up, and I was living sober living at the time and so forth like that. But, yeah, you want to see the bright lights, you want to live life. And sometimes I remember just, sponsors coming at 6 to pick me up for the meeting. I'd much rather go to the movie with you guys or something like, and I'm grateful for it. Yeah, you just reminded me that, sometimes you just need you can't be left to your own devices sometimes early in recovery. I'll just say that.
My first sponsor said, "You should never be, Kevin. You should never be left unsupervised." And I was like, "What? What the hell does that mean?" And then as I got older, I'm like, "God, that was the smartest thing anybody ever said to me." You know, because you think you're on top, you think you're clicked in, and you're not. You're just your nervous system isn't. You haven't resolved your trauma. You haven't gone through your emotional regulation stuff. You don't have any emotional sobriety. You know, I mean, there's just layer after layer after layer of stuff that just comes with time, and there's no replacement for time. You know, so
it's that beloved time that we're trying to speed up time to get back to real life, but that time is very valuable. I will say that. So.
Yeah,
I got things to do, Kevin. I can't just be sitting in sober living and doing this meaningless job. So
falling behind. I'm falling behind on my peers, my friends. You know,
in the race of life.
Yeah. I need to get married and have kids and hurry up and get divorced. You know.
So, well, let's tie into the other relapse kind of question. I've skipped over. She ended this with, from a family's perspective, what does support actually look like after someone has relapsed?
It's about having a ton of love and empathy and compassion and clear, concise boundaries. Clear, concise boundaries, and saying, we're really sorry that happened. We understand your struggle, and here's what we're willing to offer. We're willing to offer you to go back into the system and the environment of sobriety and get help, but we're not willing to, we're not buying you a car. You're not sending you to Cabo for the weekend so you can just relax, No, you are going to step into things, and it's okay. I mean, statistically it happens, right? I mean, I would always tell people, not me. I showed up on May 5th, 1991, and I've never drank again. But I had to realize the year and a half or two before that, where I was like, man, I got to knock this off, and I'm gonna. I mean, a little over a year before that, I had a friend of mine who I was working out with challenge me. She's like, I want you to not drink for 30 days. I'm like, no problem, and I think I made 10, and I was smoking weed every day, So I think that's, we need empathy, we need love, we need compassion, but we need super firm boundaries that are non-negotiable. If you want to get sober, we'll help you. If you don't, that's okay. You're an adult, but that means you get nothing.
Yeah.
That never, it's the same boundary as before. It never changes. Yeah.
It sounds like we got a question a question that says we're just basically talking AA, and what's the need of a treatment center?
Good question. Who's Dan Perzanowski? Do you know him? Cool. I like it. He's
a friend of mine, though. Like any friend of ours on social media, he's a friend. We're besties, I guess.
Yeah, so. We're BFF. Well, we're actually not talking AA. Just AA. We're talking about AA, and we're also talking about the concept of being in a sober living environment, a therapeutic environment, an inpatient environment. Because it's just not that easy, especially, nowadays, guys and gals are coming in hooked on stuff that is so much more powerful. I mean, in 1935, let's be clear, we are both massive AA people. I mean, we're no questions asked, I'm not one of those people that's like, wow, AA. I'm like, no, AA saved my life and continues to save my life. Without it, I am nowhere. No questions asked. In 1935, and throughout the entire literature of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, there's not a lot of talk about. There's no talk about early childhood trauma, sexual trauma, physical trauma, emotional trauma, living in a family environment, being raised in that kind of family environment, and the pounding that takes on you as a human being, and having to get through that, and so getting sober is great. Getting sober is the beginning, but you're going to have to do a lot of other stuff. And some people today walk in, and even back then they had treatment centers. They called them hospitals. Some people come in so physically overwhelmed by drugs and alcohol that they need that kind of medical help. And so that's what we're talking about. There are just people that can't just walk into an AA, NA, or CA meeting and be like, okay, I'm ready. There are people that physically and medically need help. And that's what we're offering. And therapeutically. Yeah.
If it wasn't for long-term treatment, I honestly do not believe that I would have been able to just change my life with AA. I mean, huge portion of my life. The growth alone within recovery principles has been immense. But I needed long-term treatment to kind of just get separation. I think my family, everybody around me needed it. And, so thankfully parents were able to afford treatment. I mean, there's long-term state-run facilities that, so I get it. People always want to put a price tag associated when we're talking about treatment centers and the success rates and so forth like that. But I think let's deal specifically with families, what we're dealing with, and it doesn't matter. Families just want their loved one back. And so treatment or AA or, they're basically just saying, like, you tell us. And some people, if the ability to, afford treatment with insurance and private pay, absolutely 100% the best way to go. And there's also very good state-run facilities or where you earn your keep and pay your room and board kind of facilities. You'll never hear me say, like, the only place, go to Malibu, California, and make sure the higher the price tag, the higher the success rate. No, it just doesn't work that way. So I needed both. I mean, long-term treatment saved my life, and AA saved my life. So that's my stance. So, all right.
I love it.
I think we did a pretty good Friday show.
Yeah, this is a goodie.
So I will see you next week, Kevin. And, take the rest of the day off. You really brought it today. All right.
If I have one more client and that's it, then I will take a giant nap. So,
well, you deserved it.